this afternoon, we want to guide you through how you conduct yourself in a chemistry lab. There is no gainsaying the fact. Chemistry is an empirical science. By empirical science, you and I know that you must carry out experiments. And in the course of carrying out experiments, there are laid down principles. There are ethics of practice within the chemistry lab. At this point, I will bring on professionals who will talk to you on how you conduct yourself within the laboratory before, during, and after you have finished or while conducting your experiment. First to come on stage is Mr. Udoka. Mr. Udoka will talk to us on laboratory safety. Mr. Udoka, laboratory safety, please.
Thank you, sir. Hello, students. You're welcome to this session. And again, you are welcome to University of Calabar. As part of your foundational chemistry, which is Chemistry 101, you'll be doing some experiments in the lab. So that takes us to laboratory. What is a laboratory? Now, a laboratory is a space, it could be a room, it could be a hall, that is equipped with scientific equipment for the purpose of scientific research. Now, this room, this laboratory has control measures to aid you carry out experiments. Now, because of the nature of this laboratory, we have a lot of dangers associated with it, Now, it becomes very necessary for beginners like you to have the knowledge of these dangers so that you can stay safe while carrying out these experiments. Now, when you come into the laboratory, you are not expected to touch anything, do anything, except you are instructed to do so. Now, how do you appear in the laboratory? I'm referring to your dressing code now. You must put on a protective wear, like what I'm using now, a lab coat. Now, this protective wear is going to prevent spills of chemicals, corrosive chemicals from having direct contact with either your fabric or your skin. So lab coats, long sleeves, not short sleeves. I'm saying this because we see students coming into the laboratory with short sleeves in the name of lab coat. That will not be allowed. So your lab coat has to be long sleeves. Is that clear? Now, dangling jewelries and long hair must be tied back. Must be tied back. Again, must be tied back. Now, baggy or loose clothing will not be allowed in the laboratory. Then your shoes, you must use cover shoe. Cover shoe, no sandals, no Crocs. And then the cover shoe, no heels. No heels will be allowed. So your dressing code, lab coats, long sleeves, no long hairs, no dangling jewelries, and then cover shoe, flats. I hope we are together. Now, in the laboratory, you will see some glasswares that looks like cup. They are not cup. Something like this. This is a beaker. You get to hear about this in the next session. Now, you are not supposed to use this to drink either water, beverage, or any other thing. It is not a cup. It is a glassware in the laboratory. Now, in the lab again, because of the nature of this lab, there are a lot of dangers going on because of the reactions that are going on. A lot of things are happening in the space. So you are not supposed to eat, drink, or chew in the laboratory. So when you come into the lab, you don't eat, you don't drink, you don't chew. You don't sit on the lab benches. Now, accidentally, you might have some spills. It could be a concentrated acid, a corrosive base, and all that. So you don't sit on the lab benches. I hope we are still together.
We are together, and you are not supposed, you are not, what the boys, you are not supposed to play in the lab. Play with him. No, you don't do this in the lab. Do it. You do not do that in the laboratory. No, you do not do that in the laboratory. You do not tickle somebody. You do not push somebody in the lab. You do not drag somebody in the lab. And if you have a dangly hair like this, my good friend, you do not bring this kind of hair into the laboratory. You do not bring this kind of hair into the laboratory. What you do is you pack this hair. You pack it and cover it for purposes. We do not allow a hair like this in the laboratory. Carry on, sir.
Thank you. Now, if you have any reason from the procedure during your stay in the laboratory to heat, with something like this is a test tube, this is my test tube holder. If you have any reason to heat in the lab. Now, this has an open mouth. This is the allowed and recommended way to heat. Now, I'm going to point this to a portion, a part of the lab that has no other lab user. So if I point this to myself, this is wrong. If I point this to where I have any other lab user, that is wrong. So I have to point this to where I don't have any other lab user. I hope we are together. Now, in the course of your experiment too, if you have any reason to dilute an acid, now because of the nature of that reaction between an acid and water, it's an exothermic reaction. Now, you don't add water to acid, you add acid to water. This is because the heat that will be generated in that reaction, you will be able to contain it if you add acid to water. Is that clear? Now, for reagent bottles, let me use the ones I have reagents inside. These are 2 reagent bottles. I have 2 reagents here. If you are carrying out qualitative analysis and you want to use these reagents, now, if I'm starting with this one, I open the cup, use the reagent. It is not proper for me to take the cup of this one and then use it on this other one. So you stopper this to where you took it from and then keep it and then use the other one. This is so because if you interchange the stoppers, you might end up contaminating the reagents. Again, if you are measuring in terms of quantity, you wanted to take 10 mils, 10 cm cube of a particular reagent, and then you mistakenly, by error, there's no mistake, by error, you took 25 mils. You are not supposed to return the excess reagent to the stock bottle so that you don't contaminate the stock solution. I hope we are still together.
What again?
Okay. Now I am going to still go to, now in terms of safety, first aid. If you have any, first, report any case of accident, breakage, anything to the instructor on ground. Now, just for you to know, if you have an acid burn, first aid, you wash the area immediately with water. Please. And then wash with 5% sodium hydrogen carbonate. Now, that is going to neutralize the effect of that acid. Wash again with water and then report if the instructor will always be around. Report every case of accident to the instructor. Now, in the lab, we have firefighting instruments. This is fire extinguisher. This is fire extinguisher. We have sand buckets. Is that clear? Is that clear? Now, these are used in case we have fire outbreak to contain the fire and put it off.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Doka. You've done well. At this point, you have listened to safety in the lab. You don't fight in the lab. You don't play in the lab. You don't eat in the lab. You don't touch reagent until you are advised to do so. You do not act within the laboratory except an instruction is given. You do not do anything other than what you are directed to do. There shall always be an instructor on ground. There shall always be an instructor on ground. Do not practice what you learned somewhere in a different laboratory, except you are told to do so. Having listened to laboratory safety, another professional will come to guide you through some common apparatus you have in the lab. Please, sir. Mr. Atta will guide you through some common apparatus you have in the lab. Mr. Atta, you're welcome.
Thank you, sir. Yes, we have an interesting session again, which is going to expose you to lab apparatus. Now, they are lined up here on the workbench. We are going to start with the one right in front of us. Okay.
Go.
Okay. I know we can all see this thing that looks like a wire. So we call it a wire gauze. Now, this is a tripod stand. A tripod stand, this wire gauge is used to place on a tripod stand so that any of our glassware that we want to heat could not face the direct heat from the flame that is there. This is called a Bunsen burner. It produces the flame that is used for either heating or boiling of any substances that are reacting in this beaker. If you look at this apparatus, it is called a beaker and it is graduated. We can see this one is a 250 ml beaker. Beaker basically is used in holding liquids during titration experiments. For instance, you can use it to hold certain quantity of acids, and you can also use it to hold certain quantity of alkalis. But if you have to boil anything using a beaker or even another glassware called the conical flask, it must not be placed directly here on the tripod stand. It cannot even stand. So to reduce the effect of heat that is coming from this flame, we place a wire gauge on top and place our conical flask on top, and then our solution that is inside the conical flask will be heated to the temperature that we so desire. Now, this is called a test tube. Chemical reactions do occur in this test tube. If you add, for instance, a solid sample inside a test tube, and a desired quantity of acid as directed by the instruction manual, you will see that chemical processes will occur here. You are going to witness the chemical process by observing a change in color, or sometimes bubbling in this apparatus that we are holding, a test tube. You can see bubbling. You can also see a change in color. Now, you cannot hold it with your bare hands. You only use what is called a test tube holder. A test tube holder, you fix it right here and take it. This is how we should use a test tube. Now, if anything demands that you are heating this test tube, just as like my colleague has said, you can expose it to a flame. This is usually connected to a gas cylinder through a hose that are fixed on the lab benches. We can see this. This is a typical example of it. This is a handle where we on the gas tap, and then we have a blue flame that is going to produce the heat. With this blue flame, you can expose this right now, the content of the test tube right now, to the flame that is going to come here. By the time it is heated to the temperature you need, you now take it down after you have observed everything that you intended to observe. Note, just like my colleague had said, you do not need to face it to anybody. You do not also need to face it to yourself. This part of the lab, there is no other person. That is why my hand is facing this way. Okay. This is a wash bottle. You can also call it an aspirator bottle. We have quantity of water being stored here. This is graduated. This is 200 ml. You have water being stored here in case you have anything to wash in the lab. The water that is here is not ordinary water. It is distilled water. If you don't have distilled water, you can use deionized water. Water that do not have ions, dissolved minerals in it, is called deionized water, so that the minerals will not interfere with whatever you are doing. So this is a wash bottle. And the function is as simple as possible, holding certain quantity of water so that you can use in washing a dirty apparatus or an apparatus that has been used. You can only do it by pressing it. You don't turn it. Just press it, water will come out. This is called a reagent bottle. We can see this is white in nature or colorless. This is colorless in nature. This one is good in storing solutions that are prepared, but not solutions that are sensitive to light. Any solution that can explode when exposed to intensity of light cannot be stored in this white one. Rather, there is this other one that we call an amber-colored reagent bottle. This amber-colored reagent bottle is the one that you store light-sensitive reagents, such as silver nitrate.
That's photosensitive reagents.
Beautiful. This is a spatula. This small apparatus that looks like a spoon is called a spatula. It has two sides, the side that looks more like a spoon and the flat side. You hold it at the middle. If you have need to pick up a solid sample, small portions of solid sample inside the test tube, this is what you are going to use, a spatula. You can use either of the sides after washing and cleaning it. That is the function of the spatula. This is a dropping bottle or indicator bottle. As you can see that this is an indicator. Now, if you have a titrimetry set being placed like this, you have to drop maybe 2 or 3 drops of an indicator during titration. How do you do it? You just press it just a little, then it will now be allowed into the either conical flask or the beaker that is here, but most times the conical flask. 2 or 3 drops, and you store it back here. You cannot remove it from this bottle. This is its permanent bottle. You have a rack, test tube rack. Normally, when keeping apparatus in the lab, like test tube, you keep it inside a test tube rack that can hold it in perfect positions. The positions are firm and perfect in that it will stop the breaking of these apparatuses. You cannot go and jam pack it with other apparatus. So the basic work of a test tube rack, even during experiments, is to make sure that when you have used a test tube, whether anything is inside or not, it should be placed here so that you can have a whole frame of the test tube inside the rack. We have come to this one we call a pipette. A pipette. Pipette is used in taking certain volumes of an alkali from a beaker and drawing it into a conical flask during titration. If you look at this pipette, you have a bulb on the pipette. And you also have a mark here on the pipette. Whenever you are drawing it, ensure that no portion of the base or the alkali gets into your mouth. Some of them could still hurt your tongue or your mouth. So it is at this point that is marked that the volume of your alkali must stop.
And it must be the down part of the meniscus.
Yes, the lower
you
meniscus.
take it to the lower part of the meniscus.
Yes.
The meniscus must, the upper part must go slightly above, so they have the exact volume of a 25 ml pipette.
Yes.
It must be the lower meniscus of the, except it is a reagent that has a concave meniscus. But usually in the lab, at this level of chemistry, you will use an aqueous solution. So it is expected to have a concave meniscus. So you take it to the lower meniscus. Carry on, sir.
So that was the pipettes. And this is the stirrer. This is the stirrer. When you put solid solutions inside the conical flask or the beaker, for easy dissolution, you use a stirrer. It is a glass rod. It is made of a glass rod, and you can use it to stir it continuously so that the solution may dissolve and become homogeneous. I mean, they should become uniform in nature. This is a thermometer. It measures the temperature of solutions in the lab. Now, if you heated a solution in the lab, your duty is to hold this thermometer at the tip so that your body may not also interfere with the working of the thermometer. You have, like this one, a silver lining right inside. The silver lining directs you. Yes, beautiful. The silver lining directs you, assuming you had heated the sample that was here in this test tube, you are not going to put it inside. It's not going to touch the walls. Put it inside the solution. If you put it inside the solution, you are going to see that this silver lining will begin to rise. And it will rise up to a point. It is calibrated, though it is small. So you watch it very well. When it rises up to a point, you mark that point, that is the temperature of the solution that was heated. It has been read now. This is called a crucible tongue. It looks like a scissors. Now,
A forceps. It looks
yes,
like a scissors or a forceps.
or a forceps. It looks like a scissors or a forceps. You can see it. Place it gently. Hold a crucible in place. Crucible sometimes may be oven dried. The sample of a crucible may be oven dried. Your hand cannot touch it. The heat will not allow you. So what do? You are going to use the tongue. Take the crucible, hold it, and make sure that you decant the content of the crucible, and then that is the work, holding a crucible in place, just like a test tube holder will hold the test tube in place. Now we have the retort stand and the clamp. Yes. This is a rector stand, and this is a clamp. Normally, this other one is called a burette. Burette, most times when you are carrying out titrations, you will use a conical flask, place it here, take it off. And when you are coming for the practical, we will always supply you with a white tile. A white tile to be placed here, and then you now keep your conical flask. Now, a burette will hold, this is your clip, burette clip. Yeah, the clip down clips it to make sure that the contents, mostly acids, or just sometimes you have titration that bases could be found in the burette, but mostly acids. So by the time you put an acid here, you have to put the clip inside of the burette, here of the burette, to clip it very well, so that the contents will be firmly held inside. Now when the contents are firmly held inside, this is a conical flask, this is an indicator. Where you take the content of the indicator, just 1, 2, 3 drops. Put it there. You run your acid here from the burette stem, which is responsible for holding the acid or the liquid. Here, run it by holding onto this clip, allowing it in droplets. When you allow it in droplets, you have to check this. If you are carrying out a titration, you have to check this. You will have an endpoint. An endpoint is observed whenever you have a change of color that was not there from the beginning of the reaction. These are pieces of condensing sets, condensers.
Like this one, particularly this one is of most interest to us. This is the reflux condenser. This is a reflux condenser. It's of most interest to us. You can see it's slightly shorter, and we call this a quick fit reflux condenser. And it has a smaller lid. Therefore, we call this a reflux condenser. And this is the normal condensing set. Okay, Mr. Atta,
yes, sir.
You have done well.
Thank you very much.
This is the much we can do, and we expect that anywhere in the world you are, once you are in the chemistry lab or in the laboratory, do not eat. Don't chew gum. Don't chew biscuits. Don't eat from lunchbox. Do not use dangling earrings. Do not use flying hair. You must always wear a long sleeve lab coat. You must wear a cover toe, a shoe that covers your toe. At every point in time, ensure that you record all observations once observed. Whatever observation you see in the course of your experiment, record it immediately. Also ensure that you do not copy some other man's work. So far, so good. We expect you to conduct yourself in a manner that will be absolutely accident-free. Every reagent in the chemistry lab is a poison, except otherwise stated. Don't taste, don't drink, don't test with your skin, don't spill on your friend, do not fling it, do not fight in the lab, do not quarrel in the lab. Ensure that you respect laboratory staff at every point in time. Thank you as we meet in the lab. Thank you.